There it is.
This morning we're in Brownton, September 28th, 2001, and we have 3 Brownton veterans here, veterans from World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. And I will let them introduce themselves and tell about their experiences in the various conflicts that they fought in. Max, we'll start off with you.
Okay. Well, first of all, I suppose you want the Max West.
This is Max West, yep.
It's Warren, technically, as far as the service.
Okay.
And I've been known as that. I have wife Wilma, and of course 3 children, Buster, Bill, and Nancy, and grandchildren. And I don't know just what you want, what part of this.
Well, tell about, first of all, the question I always ask Max is, what do you remember about December 7th, 1941?
Okay, well, I was up at Fargo, North Dakota. I'd been out the night before, so I was sleeping. All of a sudden, I heard a boy coming down the street, hollering Pearl Harbor, and I didn't know what it was. Got up, went around, finally found out what it was, and it just was a shock. Something like, it wasn't as bad as this New York, but it was quite a blow to us. And I think a lot of people like myself at the time didn't know. I'd never been, I wasn't in the Navy, because I had an uncle in there that was at Pearl.
Did you enlist, Max?
Yes. I enlisted in October 29th, 1942.
Well, you got in awful early.
Yeah, a little early. And that, I enjoyed that quite a bit. But I was drafted to go to the Army, and I realized that I hadn't signed up soon enough. They wouldn't let me go. I had to stay in the Army. I worked for W.W. Wallwork in Fargo, and I told him I wanted to go in the Navy. He says, well, they wouldn't let me go. He said, well, he's a car dealer, millionaire. He said, just a second, I'll see. And he called and says, by golly, they give me a release so I could go Navy. And I was happy. Enjoyed it. Went in the service, and of course went to Great Lakes, which was I'd never seen anything bigger than a rowboat in Detroit Lakes.
Yeah.
And then find out you're going to go Navy.
Well, Max, let's give you a little bit of rest. That was your boot camp there at Great Lakes. Well, let's give you a little bit of rest and switch over to Loren here, and then we'll come back to you.
I'm LeRoy. That's all.
LeRoy, I'm sorry. You give the audience your full name and little background, LeRoy.
I'm LeRoy Polzin, in town here, well known as Corky. And I got drafted into the Army in December of 1952. And I took my basic training at Fort Hood, Texas. Took infantry training and went to school for a while at Fort Hood, Texas, a radio school, which I never really did finish. And I got sent, after that, I got sent over to seas to Korea. I left from Fort Lewis, Washington, the boat. Took us 15 days to get over to Korea. And never had taken any artillery. I didn't even know what a howitzer looked like when I got over there. But they was short men, and they lost my papers, to be honest, and ended up with an artillery outfit during the middle of the night. And they was shooting rounds. I didn't even know what was going on when I got over there. And you want to quit at that now? Or I took 16 weeks of basic training.
Was that at Fort Hood?
Fort Hood, yes.
Okay.
And that was all M1 rifle training at that time.
Well, let's stop it there, LeRoy, and switch over to Loren, and then we'll get the Vietnam picture a little bit here from Loren Schmeling.
Okay. My name is Loren Schmeling. I'm married. My wife's name is Karen. I have 3 children, Ryan, Dawn, and Lynn. I first entered the service on June 5th, 1968, the same day that Robert F. Kennedy got shot. I was drafted into the Army, into the infantry. I spent basic training at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, through the heat cycle that they have down there. It's the first time I was ever acquainted with such high heat, but it was very similar to Vietnam. At the time I entered the service in 1968, there was a lot of unrest, or there was numerous people against the Vietnam War. When I went over there, it was basically unorganized. We had just got past the 1968 Tet Offensive. It got to the point that there was more new people than actually veterans over there. That's about as far as I can go right now.
Okay. Now we'll go back to Max over here and tell us a little bit about that boot camp you went through, and then what happened after that, Max.
I was in boot camp. They asked, like just outside, the drills, and asked if we had, any of us had any. I said, yeah, I had military training at South Dakota State, ROTC. Oh boy, you're just the guy we're looking for. And all these guys can't do an about face. And all I had to do was teach those guys. So I never had one day in 4 years, one day of KP. But the rest of my group had to get up and put on dinner or breakfast. I could just roll over, sleep some more. I guess I was real lucky on that. So the guy that I really think about after boot camp, he recommended me, sent me to Boston College there, and Chet Gladchuck, All-American center, was my chief. And he and I really got along good. And he incidentally was all-pro center for the Giants, the old single wing, and the shift back. So I had all that. The funny part of it, talk about this, goodness, guys, little Brownton, we had 6-man football. And so in all my days, I went from 6-man to 8-man to 9-man to 11-man. So it was really something different.
Yeah.
Some of the guys that sit there, 6-man. But Davey Osborne from the Vikings was a 6-man. Gary Larson of the Vikes.
Is that right?
That's right, they were 6-man football. It was interesting. He introduced me to a guy that I'll never forget, Jack Sharkey. Chet knew him personally, and I happened to be on the boxing team. And he took us down to Jack Sharkey's place in Boston. And what a thrill that was for me, to say I shook the hand of Jack, the world champion. As far as Sid Luckman, Sid Luckman broke all the records for the Bears against, who the heck did they play at? I was so excited. The Giants, that's it. And that was, those things like that were breaks that you needed. And I got lucky. That's all I can say on that. This, I see Luckman here, and Jack Sharkey was very, very friendly. Then later on, I got sent down to Washington, D.C., Bureau of Supplies and Accounts. I made the baseball team, so I could have sat there the rest of the war playing baseball. But my buddy says, come on, let's go enlist. So we went out to the Pentagon, and being we'd worked for an admiral, we could have our choice what kind of ship we wanted.
Oh.
I said, I want a big one. I said, I don't want something that's like a battleship or the carrier, but just something that comes back once in a while to get more troops to go back. And that was good duty.
What ship did you get assigned to then?
The USS Clay was being built in Hoboken, New Jersey.
Was that a cruiser?
No, that was an APA, that's carrying troops.
Oh,
And then the next one was an APA 45, the Fremont. And that, again, was carrying troops. But we also had to be ready for combat. The Clay went through Saipan, the invasion of that. Fremont went through Peleliu, we went. Then we got an Estes, I could communicate with that from Admiral Blandy to all the way to Roosevelt, right out in the water, way out in the Pacific. And that, which was interesting. Then he, let's see,
excuse me, Max, let's stop there and then we'll come back. I want to hear more about Saipan and Peleliu, because those were important battles out there. But we'll just let you rest.
I don't know, maybe I should have put that on there. I am married, and my wife Lois, and we had 6 children and 8 grandchildren. 2 boys and 4 girls we had. Now what?
Okay, where we left off, you're a Korean veteran, and I guess what the people would be most interested in is, you said you didn't have much training in the
I
artillery?
didn't have any training, not a bit. I didn't know what a Hauser looked like.
Well, tell us about those artillery pieces. They're of interest to everybody, the size and the range and...
Well, it took us 15 days to get over to Korea, which I didn't think we'd ever get there. I thought the whole world was water when I was on there that long. And after we did get there, we got over to Busan and took a train, if you want to call it that. It was wooden seats at that time, and probably went 15 miles an hour. Ended up at the end of some trail where we got picked up by a deuce and a half, which took us to our camp, what we got assigned to over in Korea. And I ended up with 955 field artillery.
Okay.
9th Corps we belonged to.
What year was that?
1952.
Okay, right at the beginning.
Yeah, we got over there. Well, no.
Not quite at the beginning.
No, about in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And we stayed in this position most of the time, except in artillery you have 3 different units, a A, B, and a C they call it. And you usually have one move up probably 4 or 5 miles, and then the other 2 batteries will sit back and protect that area. But you always have one that moves up, and at the same time you have 2 guys that go out on the outpost, and they'll send back to your 3 firing batteries which outfit. You're all spaced about 3 miles apart, each battery. And then they'll call back and find out, or try to find out which one of these batteries could reach whatever you're supposed to be firing at, call that back from the outpost. And some nights we went through probably 100 rounds from a battery. The barrel was hot.
Wow. How big was the round?
52 pounds a round. And we could send up flares, so if case the infantry wanted to see what was going on in the front, we could send up flares to them, light the sky up for them. But we didn't send too many of those, because most of the time they didn't care for that. They wanted ammo over there, I guess, more.
What were the dimensions of those 52-pound rounders?
All that about 20,
10 inches?
10 inches for sure. Dimension, yeah.
Boy, that's big.
Yeah, they would make quite a hole in the ground when they hit, you bet. And I stayed over there till 1953, but the war ended in August of '53, so, but I still had to stay my term out over in Korea but we all had to move back from where we were at, another 15 miles back, but then we set up all our guns just the same as like if we was still having a war over there, just in case something would happen again, but nothing ever did happen there. And during my time over there, they did give us a leave once to go over to Seoul for 2-3 days, and then during my stay over there, we did get to go over to Japan for a 5-day, what they call a 5-day R&R. And that was after I was over there about 7 months. We got to go to Japan for a 5-day stay, which was really nice. It really gave you a break away from everything. It really felt good.
Well, LeRoy, when we come back to you, maybe you could tell about, I've been told that the Russians supplied most of the arms and then the Chinese got into it later on. Maybe you can tell whatever you know about that. So let's switch over to Loren now, Vietnam.
Okay, when we were going over to Vietnam, we flew by airplane. The first thing I remember, when we hit Saigon, they opened up the door and it literally reeked. I never had such a smell. It's like a dead, musty odor. I'll never forget it. It's almost the same as the smell of dead flesh. It was not very pleasant. But after 2-3 hours, you get used to it. You just get accustomed to the smell. So, when I went over there as an infantryman. I pulled point most of the time while I was there. I carried a M16 rifle. I was also trained with an M14 rifle, which we used as a sniper rifle. I used the M72 Law, which we used as a, well, it would bore a hole into a tank, 1 inch thick.
That was a mortar round?
Not really mortar. It was like a bazooka, World War II.
Carried it on your shoulder?
Yep, and it had a 40-foot blast radius behind us, so you didn't want nobody behind you, because you would either blow them to the ground or you would cause open sores. The other thing we carried too was an M79 grenade launcher. Now that was like a mini mortar, and it was used like a shotgun. Had a pretty big opening of about like yay, and it was like a sawed-off shotgun. A lot of guys carried that with an M45 sidearm. We got into certain areas where I was in the Mekong Delta in Vietnam, which is down on the southern tip. All the rivers that were in the country would have high and low tide. So there's a number of times when we would be out canvassing the area or pulling what they call a cordon, which is search and seizure. During those times, the tide in the morning would be high, so we'd have to swim to get across the river. But in the evening, you could walk. It was only ankle deep. So we had various physical obstacles to overcome when it came to the weather. And I was there during the dry season, but they do have what they call the monsoon rains, where it does literally rain maybe every 3-4 hours during that period of time. And probably will rain from 1 to 2 inches and just soaks the area up. Some of the skirmishes I got into were not like the Korean War or the World War II. We had what we call little firefights. They would last between 5 to 10 minutes on them, down in my area, down on the southern tip. A battle there was like, how should I say, we'd set up a day ambush, they'd ambush us. And the fight took a matter of 5 to 10 minutes, and then they'd be more like guerrilla warfare, where you hit and run. That is about as far as I can get with that.
Okay, go back to Max again here.
Okay, one thing I forgot to tell you, when I arrived in Boston, as they say there, of course, they had, it was Christmas Eve, and they said, we pulled into there, says, you're on your own. So what we did is just walked around had nothing to do. Finally, we found a USO and spent the Christmas Eve there. The Coconut Grove was right near where we went to school. And of course, I don't know if you remember that, Boston College played Holy Cross for the big game. And if they won, they would go to this Coconut Grove party. 500 people burned to death. I can't smell, I have no sense of smell, but as we go marching to school, we had to march to school, the guys that could smell just gag the smell from that. And it was really bad that way. This other deal I got here is the Marshalls. We're going to the Marshall Islands as first start, but we didn't have much combat. The Japs, we were pretty much in lead. The only thing I used to get a kick out of, Tokyo Rose. And
Tell us about that.
Tokyo Rose, whenever we had a chance, she played our music, but we said our music of WW2. Glenn, I saw quite a few of those in there, and let's see what Tokyo Rose. Oh, it was Christmas Eve, and I guess I should get this other straighter. Oh, the bunch of us were down in the Philippines, and she said, well, fellas, isn't this a beautiful evening? Wonder what your girlfriend's doing back home.
It was all propaganda, wasn't it?
Yeah, and us guys, we laughed, we were single. And those guys that were married, it sort of got to some of them. But most of us loved the music and that. And it made you feel good. The time we were heading down to Pelio, that's one of the major ones down there, Tokyo Rose said, well, fellas, I see you're pulling out, going down to the southwest. And we got to take, we're eating dinner, or chow, was it? Supper, you'd call. And she says, gee, I wonder what you did. Oh, I see you got a battleship with you, you got this. She named all the ships with you as we're going. And finally she said, you'll never get there. Let me tell you, that chow line broke out and everybody ran down to, I don't know, none of us know what we did with our, if you swim, flight jacket. And we had to go back and look for them, but nothing happened. I remember myself, about 5 of us slept underneath these landing boats. And we thought if we're going down, we're going to be swimming right from the start. We're not going down with it. But we were lucky, and it was just one of her talks. But boy, you thought, she made you think about it. But as I say, we loved the music. And then from the next place, we were going to go back to Pearl Harbor for a change from New Guinea. And they told us that we should, as good as we could, get ready for it. And all of a sudden, in the Bay of Hollandia, in the New Guinea, we didn't know just what and how much. It was hot. And they took us in these little boats across that bay. And like Loren said, boy, I couldn't, thank God I couldn't smell. I got by with that. But then the Indianapolis took us back and became friends of some of them. A couple of those guys, they said, we're going home. And the one guy I befriended, and we talked, and he took me around, showed me how the Indianapolis had been holes all over the ship, where they got. And then he says, we got to Pearl. He says, so long, Westy, we'll see you. We're going back home. But they did go home and right back to Tinian. And then that's when they got 800 people. There's a guy from Hutch. I was over visiting him. I don't know him too well. but he was one of the guys, as far as I know, floating around there. But 800 people drowned
Was that on Indianapolis?
in Indianapolis.
Was your troop ship fired on or torpedoed?
Yes, different times we had torpedoes shot at us. You turned and mess it that way. Like I said, the good Lord's got to be with you. I had good duty. I worked with an admiral's staff, a little enlisted man. People say, gee, that's top secret. Nobody, I knew a month ahead of not Pearl Harbor, Saipan that we were going to do. Because somebody's got to type those orders.
Yeah.
And that's what, so we knew where they were. All of a sudden a lady down near Tulagi, I just said to them, what should we do here with watch there? And we either was strafed, wiped clean, a ship was sunk, and I got to escape all that. I didn't have.
Did you get experience with any of those kamikaze pilots?
Oh yeah, we were watching a movie at night, topside one night, and this is near the Iwo Jima time. And what they did, they'd sit there and they'd take us, go see what they could do. And it just had to go. Oh, the planes come and strafed. They didn't fire at ours. They took the ship next to it. But on our ship at that time, if they realized what we had, there was a special meeting with Admiral Blandy, Admiral Fort, Holland Mad Smith, all those guys. They dove at us twice and changed their mind. And us guys watching the movie, we had words for them because we couldn't hear the movie. And those are some of the things you got to have. Again, lucky.
Yeah.
And dove at this, and they dove into the island by mistake. Thought it was another.
Well, let's switch back to LeRoy for a while and give you a little rest there, Max. You want to show us that Korean medal that you have there, and I'll focus in on it if you hold it up right under your chin.
Yeah, got that sent to me from,
Oop.
got this medal about a year ago, sent to me direct from Korea. And it was in the VFW paper that they was giving out a certain amount, and we could have sent into VFW paper, but they gave us an address, and I thought, well, maybe that'd be faster as long as they was only giving out a certain amount. I was going to make sure I got one, and I did get one, and it was sent to me from Korea, and which I think is fairly nice.
Very nice.
So I'm very proud of it.
How long did you spend over there, LeRoy?
I spent 1 year over in Korea, which was about 7 months of fighting and 5 months of just being over in Korea. But I stayed with our artillery outfit, and we had, well, every battery was supposed to have about 12 people to it, which we never did have the whole while I was over there. We was always shorthanded. I don't know why. It seemed like people was getting drafted, people was getting sent over to Alaska, some to Germany, but it seemed like never many got over to Korea for some reason or other. And we had supposed to have 12 men to a section, but we never did. And the most we ever had was probably 9, and probably 3 or 4 of those, 3 or 4 for sure, were Korean, South Koreans that we had. And while they were just as new to artillery as I guess I was when I first got there, I should say. And they didn't have no experience with artillery, and we never did make a gunner out of any of them, but they did help with the ammo. We had one gunner to a section and one chief of section, and took turns. The chief of section and the gunner took turns every night. One had to stay on duty every night in case they called your section for some protection up front, that you was ready. We had bunkers that we stayed in overnight, and during the day we had tents that we could stay in.
You fired mostly at night?
Yeah, most of the firing, very little firing was done in the daytime, very little. Most of our firing always was at night, and that you could just make sure you had your sleep during the day, you might say, because at night is when the firing would start. Yeah, we had very, very, very little in the daytime.
What part did the Russians and the Chinese play in that Korean War?
Well, I would have to say Chinese, they had supplies, the Russians had the supplies for the Chinese. The Chinese didn't have really that much either.
But they did the fighting, didn't they?
They did, well, manpower didn't really mean nothing to them. They had more people than I guess maybe that's the way the war was. They had so many people that but I'd have to say well, the South Koreans didn't have much as far as when they came over to join us, they came over in tennis shoes, and they were not ready for any fighting. I mean, we had to get them some shoes, and you might say dress them. When they came there in one pair of slacks or fatigues or whatever you want to call it, and that was it. That was whatever was on their back is what they came with. After that, you had to supply them with everything. And boy, at first they wasn't used to our food, which wasn't steak or something every day either. But boy, I guess it was a lot richer than their fish heads and rice every day. And I'll tell you, you didn't want to go near the latrine for a while when they got in there because it didn't smell too good.
Were you ever attacked from the air with the MiGs that were supplied by the Russians?
Oh, they had some that got close to us a few times, but no, we never had a direct hit on our outfit. No, the whole while I was over there. We were with 155. No, we had 105, 5th triple nickel artillery, which got wiped out completely. The whole battalion, not just one battery. Everybody got wiped out that time. And they was stationed ahead of us. In fact, you had your 105s closer up to the front than your 155, and I don't know what happened, but they just got wiped out one day. Never really found out why.
Well, every war was fought a little differently, and Vietnam was different than anything that we've ever experienced. You kind of illustrated it as cowboys and the Indians, Loren. You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, it was a lot like Cowboys and Indians, only thing the role playing was reversed, where the Indians formed the wagon trains and the Cowboys were attacking. And the Cowboys were winning, which meant that the Vietnamese were winning. We had guerrilla warfare there. There was no front line or back line. It basically was base camps. You worked out of those base camps every day or every night. A lot of times the weather was a major factor, that or high and low tides. We have a problem with mosquitoes, malaria. The drinking water was always foul. People there lived in mud huts and very little for clothing, actually, maybe like a sack dress or something like that. The mountain yard people were very much like our American Indians. They still use bow and arrow and spears. There was not such a thing as a latrine or an outhouse or whatever. The people over there basically went out behind some bush or a tree. That was their outhouse. And believe it or not, I found a few of them as I got up to my chest in a few of them. So believe it or not, I didn't get any help trying to get out. So the nearest creek or whatever is where I headed, because I had to get that smell as well as whatever was on me off. I was in a few combats, fighting areas that we had. Numerous guys that I knew got wounded or whatever. Probably leading up to the worst thing that the point man faces, and that's booby traps. Vietnam is just overwhelmed by the number of booby traps that are on your local trails or your backwoods trails. They don't have highways over there. They have walking paths, is basically what their trails were composed of. Believe it or not, the booby trap that got me, I read the sign. It said 15 meters ahead that there was a booby trap. I had 7 guys walked over that same area before I did, but I still found it. It was a U.S. grenade tied by a vine. So I thought, how unlucky can I be? But then when I think back on it, how lucky I really was. It finally ended my fight in Vietnam with the Viet Cong.
So you got a Purple Heart there.
Yes, I have a Purple Heart. In fact, I have 3 Purple Hearts from injuries sustained in Vietnam.
Wow, I'll tell you that, that's a chilling experience. Max, you want to switch back to...
Yeah, I got a note here, what I should check on, and that was, we left Iwo Jima because we were practicing about 4 in the morning, and the Quincy, and that's a cruiser, and us put about a 12-foot gash in the front of our ship. And it took us, we thought, boy, we're going home. We cheered, and instead we ended up at Tacloban down the Philippine Island. So it wasn't so good. It was lucky in a way because I got to get to the Philippines, not for fighting, but we just got in. I got ashore. Mailman took me ashore with one time to bring mail. That was always a great thing to get, was mail.
Let me ask you a question that's on everybody's mind that's studied that Pacific War at all, and that is, after Okinawa, you were preparing to invade Japan.
That's right.
August of 1945.
Yes.
August 1945, Truman dropped the bomb there. How many troops do you think we would have lost if we would have had to invade Japan?
I don't know. A lot of people criticize us for doing it, but boy, it brought an awful lot of us home with your arms, legs, eyes. So I've never been one to say that's the wrong thing to do. I think it helped us get home. This other thing with, I guess I've got most of this deal up here. Okinawa, yeah. Now, Okinawa, we went 9 days before D-Day. We would run our ships out and fake landings. At Iwo, we did it for 3 days. But they had Mount Suribachi. They wanted them to bring the guns out for that, so they could know. Then I got an order that I thought was sort of funny. They wanted to know, the captain of the ship had to call Admiral Blandy, who I worked for, could they shoot at Suribachi? And their answer was, if you think you can hit it. The mountain. And there was so many things that you could see that, oh, here's a note that I got before I got that happened. Playing baseball for this deal, Lloyd Marshall of the Giants, I made the All-Star team with them, and we really had a lot of benefits by that. And my buddy came in one day, he said, I just volunteered us to go overseas. I said, what? He says, yeah, you didn't want to sit here the whole war. And it ended up, I'm glad he did it. But
Now, and the troops you were carrying were mostly Marines, Max?
Marines was a war that one time we picked them up. We thought we were all going back to the States, first division of that. And instead, it went the other way. We went south. Boy, I thought they were going to shoot holes in our own ship. They were mad. One note here that I was really proud of, I totally played baseball a lot in there. But in the fourth inning, our admiral bought the tickets, so we had front row tickets in Griffith Stadium during the war now. And we were sitting there, and all of a sudden, they stopped the game. And here the Crown Prince of Baseball come on to entertain all service guys.
Is that right?
Showed, oh, it was fun to imitate. And then all of a sudden, quiet, and then a cheer, and you know, and here was Babe Ruth in person coming out. That's, first was, and the last guy to show up, Kate Smith. Then she sang that famous song you were hearing of Kate Smith. They got somebody playing the record of her.
God bless America.
Yeah, but I was so lucky with things. Just to give you an example, here are 10 guys, my uncle and brothers, 4 times, that, you know, people, you'd come home to Fargo and say, oh, I got a son, have you seen him in Pearl Harbor? The people have no idea how many people in our outfits, isn't that right? You think, well, my gosh. Yeah, we'd say hello to him. But I met my brother John in Washington, D.C. Then, next thing we went was in Honolulu. And I went over to the Naval Intelligence because the connections I had. And could you tell me where the 107th Seabees is? He looked at me. He looked at me. Full commander, and he backed out. And just a second, he said, pretty soon he come back. Now with a 4-striper captain, maybe. And he says, looked at me, he said, what give you the idea? The 107th Seabees is in Honolulu. Oh, it saved me. I said, well, I pulled out an envelope. Here's a letter to me from him. And he mailed it at 10 o'clock, and I got it at 11 o'clock. Oh, God, he says, we thought there was a leak. He says to his other guy, go take Wes down to see his brother. So I got to march with my brother. He's leaving for Tinian. So I got with him. Then I had 2 cousins, and Kenny West and Brown there. Just lucky to meet that many. I know some guys that never met anybody.
Yeah.
But if you say lucky, I don't know. It wasn't that it's so horrible. We dodged things and that, such as torpedoes coming your way, and then we dodged them and with them. But some of those Navy guys, like I say, thank God I didn't know what the Marines, infantry had.
Yeah.
I was sort of happy with it.
Well, I guess combat is just like sports. There's a little luck plays into it once in a while, too. LeRoy, you got anything you want to wind up with about Korea?
Well, like I said before, we stayed over there till our term was up, which was usually a year. And when I came back, got discharged out of Camp Sheridan, Illinois. And I guess I was fairly glad I was back home again.
Okay, Loren.
Yeah, Vietnam was an experience for me. Being a country boy, coming from the farm, I never seen such a backward country as when I went over there. but it also taught me a good lesson. No matter how bad it may get, and you think you're down and out, there's always someone else that's got it worse. Because when I come back after being wounded, I spent 18 months in the hospital in Denver, Colorado. I was put on the arm patient wing on the 5th floor, and it was called 5 West, and the patients on 5 East were leg patients. And we'd always get a chance to maybe see each other or visit, and that's when I really realized how lucky I was. I may have spent 18 months in a hospital, but I seen guys with legs missing, both legs, both arms, blind. They really didn't have much reason to live. So to me, war is hell, just plain hell. And I still am a patriotic patron. Still to this day, after all the things that have happened, I would be probably one of the first ones to go to combat if our country needed us. Thank you.
Boy, that is a good tribute. And we'll swing back here to Max. You want to wind up with anything, Max?
Well, right offhand, other than this, seeing all this relation, and I just felt so lucky in that. And I always got word back to my mother. She knew where I was, and mail was checked. But I just saw Uncle Bill, and then I knew she knew he was in Pearl Harbor, so then she knew that we were back to get more troops. And, like these guys said, a lot of people don't realize what these guys went through. We didn't go through anything like Loren and that. It could have, but it didn't, like I say, luck. And I thought maybe I had got a picture of a note here on some girls from Hutchinson that I bumped into them.
Okay.
I'm not saying who they were. They're real good kids and stuff. They invited my brother and I over to their place in California for dinner. They fried a turkey with the legs sticking out inside the frying pan. Then my brother took over John and he fixed their meal. But like I say, it was, the music, all the big stars that we saw all the time, Bob Hope and that, boy, that was fun. And
Well,
the
let's...
first time I saw Guadalcanal, not the main battle, that was I couldn't believe how, I said, they had these coconut trees just planted like corn, checked.
Oh.
You could see right down the rows, and not all over, but a lot of them there. So that made,
Plantations.
yeah.
Well, let's just stop here for a minute. We're about ready to wind this up now, and I want to thank these men for taking their time to come over here today and tell about their experiences. And I want to personally thank them as well as every veteran in the country that has served this country and made sacrifices, and a special tribute to those that made the sacrifice of losing their life to defend this country. Had it not been for those people and these men, we could be living under totalitarian rules right now. So anything you fellows want to say to these students as we wind this up?
Well, I think one thing I'd like to do is let guys like Corky, that we grew up together here. And we got to like hope that things go and the kids realize, sing the song that was meant for this country to be great. And it's something, I don't know, that really gets me mad when I see that. And I hope another thing is these games, get these little kids, and the national anthem on, and they're running up and down the gym, And then we're the parents. I probably get called on this, but Corky's on the board, he knows what, we try to keep things right there, so kids got that on it.
Okay,
Yes, I'd have to say, now with this attack we had at Twin Towers, and that's maybe the greatest thing that happened. A lot of these kids never knew what it was like to be in the service. But I'd have to say, I wouldn't give those 2 years up for nothing. It was 2 years of experience. I wouldn't give them up.
My first combat was a Saipan, and I volunteered for carrying these guys up to the sick bay. And I was sitting there, and I looked down, there was the water 30 feet down. I'm scared of height. And I stood there, and I thought, oh, I gotta get out of here. And about that time, I heard saw. I thought, geez, is this the butcher shop? And I heard this guy screaming, don't take it, don't take it. And then I could hear the saw, and that was, I'm sure you guys did more than I did. And
okay, Loren, we'll have you wind this up.
Well, I think my experiences in Vietnam, even though they were somewhat brief, is something I will never forget. The culture experiences, the people you meet, the different languages that they use. My whole outlook has been broadened. I'm not only from a small hick town now, say in Cosmos, Minnesota, or near the Brownton area. I now have gotten some experiences of different people, different color, nationalities, and so forth. And you also learn teamwork. That is the one key thing about being in the service. You learn teamwork, and you develop some very good friends. I think everyone in this country, it should not be maybe mandatory, but everyone should at least be in the service, say, for at least a year to 2 years. I think it would be a very good learning experience for anyone that's in the high school level. Thank you.
Because a lot of times, like Loren said, a lot of your kids at 18 don't really know what they really want to do anyway. Maybe if everybody would have, like he said, maybe a year or two, I don't think it would hurt anybody to get this experience. It's so helpful, I think, to everybody.
well, I'd say one thing, there's a lot of sports being played, and I got lucky, and I met different guys. And fortunate enough, a good friend of his from down in Austin, I had the all-star team with him. The sports like this has done so much to help these kids. I know it kept me in school, and it made me stay eligible, but I do not believe in it where it says not every kid can learn it. And I get mad when they say, oh, that dummy will never get it, and this or that kid. I don't know, if the kid could probably do this other and help the kids that way. They got Molitor now, trying to help these young kids read. I think that's a great thing.
Okay, well, Max being the senior member of this group, we'll just wind up with that.